Good day. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with AARP in the Virgin Islands. I'm Troy Deshabere Schuster, State Director for AARP in this territory. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. October was first declared as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in 1989. Since then, this month has been a time to acknowledge domestic violence survivors and be a voice for its victims. Domestic violence is prevalent in every community and affects all people, regardless of age, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, gender, race, religion, or nationality. Physical violence is often accompanied by emotionally abusive and controlling behavior as part of a much larger systematic pattern of dominance and control. Domestic violence can result in physical injury, psychological trauma, and even death. The devastating consequences of domestic violence can cross generations and last a lifetime. Although there has been substantial progress in reducing domestic violence, an average of 20 people are physically abused by intimate partners every minute. This equates to more than 10 million abuse victims annually. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have been physically abused by an intimate partner. And 1 in 5 women and 1 in 7 men have been severely physically abused by an intimate partner. Millions of Americans live in daily silent fear within their own homes. In addition, every year, millions of children are exposed to domestic violence. Domestic violence incidents affect every person within a home and can have long-lasting negative effects on children's emotional well-being and social and academic functioning. As the largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization in the U.S., AARP has been a champion of efforts to empower Americans 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With nearly 38 million members nationwide and 22,000 members here in the Virgin Islands, AARP works to strengthen communities and advocate for what matters most to families, with a focus on health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. That is why AARP has invited Clema Lewis, Executive Director of the Women's Coalition of St. Croix, to provide resources, programs, and services to victims and survivors of domestic violence, and to share all that they are doing, especially an upcoming program with us today. And so, Clema, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you, Troy?
I'm well. I'm well. I hope you're well too.
I'm okay. I'm doing okay.
Great. You know, we were discussing before the show that this is such it's such a weighty kind of situation, and I'm sure that it must take a toll on you and on your team emotionally. And so it's wonderful to see that you're still able to smile, and
Yeah.
that as we discussed earlier, that you have not lost your compassion, and that you're always the loving person that I've always known you to be,
Oh,
and
thank you.
providing the wonderful services for people who are being abused. And so, may you be blessed in every way for all the great work that you do. And
Thank
so,
you. Thank you.
um, jumping right in, tell us some about the Women's Coalition. Maybe give us a little bit of the history
Okay.
and what the Women's Coalition has been doing over the last several years since its founding.
Okay. Well, thank you again for inviting me, Troy. I appreciate our partnership with ARP. It means a lot to us. It's close to my heart. The Women's Coalition, I'm so proud to say, is celebrating 41 years in this community. I mean, that's amazing for a nonprofit just to survive in this community and doing the type of work we do. We're 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. So we don't take time off. We are available around the clock. We have advocates that responds to victims around the clock. Our phone number is 340-773-9272, and we provide crisis intervention, support, and advocacy for all victims of crime. That includes women, men, and children, the entire family. to put it in a nutshell. Um, this is October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which is the largest month for us. As you can see, I'm in purple from the hair all the way down to my toes. During this month, we do everything in purple because purple is the symbol of domestic violence. It's the awareness around the domestic violence. It's a support for victims and survivors of domestic violence. So if you see purple and you hear us ask people to wear purple, actually, October the 20th was National Domestic Violence Day. Wear purple all around the country. And I happened to be in the States, and I was so amazed to see a lot of people in purple. It was a good feeling to be out there in purple. But this month, we have done a lot this month. We continue to do a lot. We start off with Purple Day. We had a motorcade on the 15th where we went through the streets from Canagator Ballpark all the way to Butto Park, blowing our horns. All our cars was decorated in purple to bring awareness. We had our supermarket campaign. I believe that was on the 8th. We had it at the market, which is always supportive, and Gallows Bay Hardware for the first time. We were out in front asking people to make donations to families we provide services to, because we just don't do counseling and advocacy and support. We help people with food, clothing, shelter. I mean, people come here, Troy, for everything. They just walk in the door and say, they might come in here and say, I don't have money for my medication today, or I don't have my money for rent, or they come here for everything. So we can't do everything, but we do what we can do. Let's be honest. We one agency. We can't do everything, but we try to do most of the things or some of the things that we provide to the community. We had our Take Back the Night March the other day that I was very proud of, where we honored all our community partners, and AARP was one. Your certificate is here in the office, Troy. We have to get it to you. But we honored our partners who do this work with us, and that meant a lot. I think it's important to recognize the people that support this work, because it's very hard work. And a lot of people don't support it because their families are involved. Maybe it's too emotional. Maybe they're not ready. So what I always tell my staff, our community don't get involved in domestic violence until it hits close to home, until somebody hurts somebody they love, or until it happens to them. Then they're willing to open their arms and support. And that's kind of sad. You should want to do it because you just want to help your community in general. But that's not always easy because it's a hard issue to deal with. We're having our forum tonight that we're partnering with ARP on domestic violence, a male perspective, victims and perpetrators. And I'm so excited about it, Troy. This is the first time in the Women's Coalition history, and since I've been here for practically the beginning, that we ever did a forum that focused on men, because I'm tired of hearing people say we don't like men, we don't help men, which is false and not true. So this year, our special population we're focusing on is male victims versus male perpetrators. And we want the community to be able to recognize the difference between a male victim and a male perpetrator, so both can get help. The male victim can help as well as the male perpetrator. Because one thing I learned about doing this work, you can do all the work you want to do with victims. If you don't help the person that's hurting them, they're going to just keep hurting them, and the victim going to keep going back. So it's critical that you help the whole family, the perpetrator, the victims, and of course the children who are also caught up, and then the elders and the family members and everybody else that's involved in domestic violence in our community.
You know, there's
You
so
run a shelter. It's a lot, so I'll stop and let you jump in.
you
I
know,
have you going.
no, it's always wonderful to hear you talk, and you're so steeped in the work, and you're so committed that I know when we let you loose, you just talk, right?
And you
Because
have to stop me.
no, that's wonderful, wonderful. It shows your zeal, for the work, your enthusiasm to help to combat domestic violence. And yes, AARP has been a partner of the Women's Coalition for many years now. We've done many things together. We are working together on this event this evening regarding male domestic violence. And so we're looking forward to that. And You know, I was struck by when you said that you offer service 24 hours a day. That's pretty intense to
It
be,
is.
you know, up and going at it at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning when somebody has been victimized. That's really wonderful to know that you're able to provide that service. And
Holidays, weekends, it's no, I mean, the office closed at 5, but we have trained advocates that come on duty once the office closed. So if someone said they weren't able to get services, I would be a little confused because all they have to do is call the number that I mentioned. And if they can't get us through the number, they can go to any one of the police commands and say, can you call a Women's Coalition advocate for me? And the police is supposed to do that because all of them have our schedules and all our phone numbers. So there should never be a reason you go to the police department and they can't reach us as well. And even the hospital, if you go to the hospital and say, I need an advocate, they're supposed to be able to call us as well.
and I'm
So we
particularly
cover.
happy to hear that you provide services to male victims. You know,
Mhm.
those are the silent sufferers.
That's right. That's right.
Men who are abused are often so very ashamed to talk about the abuse. You know, they feel like they're being emasculated, or as we would say in our colloquialism, that they're being henpecked. You
Mhm.
know, that they're less of a man because a woman is abusing them, and so they suffer silently. I mean, there are a lot of people who are being abused who suffer silently, but we see that at a much higher rate among men who are being abused because of the shame, because of the stigma involved, and they don't know where to go. And many times they feel very trapped, and
Absolutely right.
they suffer the worst. So, do you have many men who take advantage of your
Oh
services?
yes, we have men that call us all the time. You'll be surprised. Those that the good thing about the telephone is that a lot of men call by phone in case they don't want to show up in person. Even if they don't want to tell us their name, they don't have to tell us their name. And we provide counseling over the phone. We do by the internet. We do on Zoom, whatever makes it easier for them. But I'm happy to say, I guess I shouldn't be happy to say, but I would say we see more men now than we ever in the past. I guess it took them a while because when you hear the name Women's Coalition, you just assume we only providing services for women. But that's our hallmark, just like AARP is you all. We have no intention of changing that name because that's important for us. That's a 41-year history. But we also very clear when we speak, we say we provide services to women, men, and children. And so we do get men, male victims that come to see us because you have two programs in the territory that provide services for abusers. And that would be the Men's Coalition of the Virgin Islands on St. Croix. And you have a program in St. Thomas called the Batterers Intervention Program under Family Resource Center. But be clear, they only deal with perpetrators. So if you're a male victim, you would come to the Women's Coalition, 7739272. And if you're a male victim in St. Thomas or St. John, you would go to the Family Resource Center, which is 340-776-3966. And the same services we provide to female victims, we provide them to male victims as well. There is no discrimination. There's nothing different. We support them. We advocate for them. We do everything for them we do for the female victims. So I want to make that clear.
And speak to us a little bit about confidentiality. You know, we live in a small community, and people are always afraid that their business is going to get out on the street, and people are going to know what they're suffering in their home. So, how do you help to ensure confidentiality?
That's a good point, and I should have mentioned that. Thank you. All our services is confidential. Everything we do here is confidential. The staff has been oathed, barred, sweared in about their not to release any confidentiality. They know they can lose their jobs. We're that serious about confidentiality. That's why we go, Troy, to all kind of lengths. I've met people in their car. I met them in Frederickstead. I met them in Waterfront. We will meet them wherever they feel safe and comfortable. So if a victim call, male or female, and say, I don't feel like coming in your office because I don't want anybody to see me, then we'll meet them at a neutrally safe location outside. When they call, you don't have to identify yourself, so nobody knows you're calling. And if we see you in public, we will never recognize or identify or make any acknowledgement that you might have received services. And that's big, because I tell you, I can't go a store and anywhere and somebody don't be calling me, and I'll be trying to like be mild and cool, because people automatically assume if they talking to Clema, they must be a victim. Like I don't have any friends or family, but our staff is very, I'm serious. So, they just watching or they talking to Clema. So we are very, very, very clear on the lines of how important confidentiality. And I think that we have proven that because we see over 1,000 people a year. If people didn't trust us and didn't believe it was safe, I don't think they would be coming here.
Mhm.
And they do come because we say to them, everything that says here stays here. And we're very, very strong on the confidentiality piece. And I'm
Yep.
glad you brought that up, because the community need to know whatever you need, it will always be safe. You don't want us to say anything. You just want us to be here. You want support. You just want advice. You want options. We will provide all of that, all in silo, all in confidentiality. And so that's important.
Yeah, it is extremely important. Extremely important.
It's
Thank
a
you for
small
addressing that.
community. So even if you come and say, I don't want my mother to know. So even if we had once where a family member called me and their relative worked in my office and they wanted to talk to somebody, but they didn't want to talk to the member that worked here because they didn't want them to know. And so I literally had to find a time and a location and meet them away from here and provide that services. That staff person never know that I provided services to their family member, and they will never know,
Excellent.
because that's what keep us alive. We have to be very careful. Also, you can violate confidentiality, Troy, and somebody could die. So it's really serious. Like you might say something to the wrong thing. You might alert the wrong person. You have to be real careful, because domestic violence is a matter of life and death. It's a matter of safety. So you really have to be careful. So people out there playing counselors and feel like they know what to do, be real careful about the advice you give, because statistics show most victims are killed when they leave.
Oh,
Not when they stay, but when they're trying to leave. So you got to be very careful.
yes, yes, yes. And tell us about the event coming up this evening. Let's focus on that and tell us all about it. What are the origins of this event, and what is it going to be like this evening?
Okay, so this event came up because every year in Domestic Violence Month, we decide we want to do a virtual forum. Last year we did special populations and we used a different population. And this year I felt strongly it was time to come out and speak to male violence and male victimization and male perpetrators. And I was so happy that the whole committee was on board. Everybody agreed. Even Pam from your office, we were all rooting. This is the time. This is what we need to do. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to have someone speak to the signs of a male perpetrator. What are the characteristics? If you are a male perpetrator, these are the signs, what to do and where to go for help. We also going to have a male victim. I'm so excited. My heart just started beating fast. We have a male victim that's going to speak tonight about his victimization and signs of victimization for male victims, where to get help, what to do, what to look out for as well, which is going to be exciting. So we'll have the perpetrator's perspective as well as the victim. And then we're excited because the FBI, some people are a little scared of that, but don't be afraid. Mr. Perky is going to talk about elderly abuse among seniors. That's another piece that's close to my heart, because I get a lot of calls from family members saying my father's being victimized, mostly by women, taking their money, trying to take their property, that kind of stuff. And when I call the male victim to try to speak to him or help, he won't acknowledge it, he don't see it, he don't get it, because this is somebody paying attention. So when the family call for assistance, we try to help, but it's really difficult to deal with elderly abuse. So we make our reports to the Department of Human Services, because they have the elderly abuse unit, and then we try to reach out to the male victim along with the family members. So there will be a presentation tonight on elder abuse of men, not females. Let's make it clear. The majority of DV victims are women, but tonight is not about women. Tonight is about men. So even the elderly abuse form piece will speak to elderly men who are being abused. And so I'm really excited. You will be able to make comments. You'll be able to ask questions. The panelists will be available to respond. It's going to be really exciting, enlightening, and educational. Troy, I have no doubt about it. It's going to be probably one of the best pieces we put on, along
Excellent.
with ARP.
Thank you. Yes, yes. And just a bit of information for our listening and viewing audience who will be listening to this on the radio and looking at it on television later this week. This show is recorded on October 26th, 2022. We're referring to an event taking place this evening, the evening of October 26th, 2022. So if you're viewing or listening to this program later in the week, that event will have already passed. So again, the event is the evening of October 26, 2022. And the information is going across the screen for those of you looking on YouTube or Facebook as to how you can register for the event. And at the end of the show, we'll put it in the comments, so you can refer to it and register for the event. And Clema, you mentioned about elderly abuse, and this is something, again, that's very near and dear to the heart of AARP, as we're advocates for the older community. Oftentimes we think about financial abuse, but so many elders are physically abused, they're neglected,
Emotionally abused,
emotionally abused.
they're neglected, they're
Yeah,
not being cared for. So because I think when people look at domestic violence, Troy, they really just look at the physical aspect, but the emotional and the psychological is just as damaging. Being put down, no affection, no love, making you think you crazy, the neglect, not even feeding you, helping you with your medication, taking you to your appointments. And there's so many seniors, because I consider myself in the senior bracket now. It's so many seniors out there that's really lonely. So we just get calls because they want to talk, Joy. They don't have nobody to talk to. I've had seniors that tell me they want me to come by and pick up something. And by the time I get there, we having coffee or tea, and we just chatting because they're so lonely, which is kind of sad. We don't take care of our seniors. And when they're assigned, some of the caretakers are the abusers. We have to call that out and be fair too, taking advantage of the little income they get, not taking care of them. So elderly abuse is serious in our community. I don't think we take it as serious. The other piece is there's not many places they can go. Where do you go? If you leave your home, where do you go? There's really not a lot of places they can go if the family don't take them, if we can't find some of the programs here to take seniors. And a lot of the housing units don't provide services. They might provide a house. Well, who's going to go in there and clean up? Who's going to go in there and make sure they fed? Who's going to make sure they get their medication? So on that end, we got a lot of work to do.
a lot, a lot. And
Mhm.
some of the most striking neglect that we see is so many seniors, older people who are abandoned in the hospital.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing? You know,
That is it amazing. I get those calls, Troy. The hospital calls me if it's a woman, particularly, and go, Miss Lewis, this lady been here a week. Can y'all put her in the shelter? I'm going, is she a victim? No, the family just left her here. I said, then you're gonna have to call human services, and we're gonna have to figure out where would be the best. Because I don't have medical staff at the shelter. So I can't put her at the shelter unless I'm able to take care of the needs, because that wouldn't be fair either.
yeah. I mean, they come in there for some kind of acute illness, and they're treated in the hospital, and the hospital is calling their family to say, come pick up your mother, pick up your grandfather, whatever, and nobody comes. We've seen older people abandoned in the hospital for years.
That's right. And it's still going on. It's still
Years.
going on. That's
I'm
right.
not talking about, I mean, you mentioned the hospital would call you after a week, but I mean, some of them end up there for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and they're just there languishing in a hospital bed.
So we got to figure out a way, maybe under AARP, those are things we need to be tackling. We need to
Yes.
be trying to make a space here for them because Herbert Gregg is always full. I had a lady the other day, we was trying to find somewhere for her to go. There was nowhere here for her to go. And she had a caretaker that was abusing her. So our dilemma was we take her out the house, where are we going to put her? We leave her there. We were trying to get the caretaker out, but guess what? She didn't want to let go of the caretaker because that's all she had.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
the dilemma. That's the
Yeah.
dilemma.
Yeah. At AARP, we've through our advocacy, we've worked on several pieces of legislation regarding elder financial abuse. But
Good.
as we've already discussed with you, and you will be our community partner in this as well, we're working on developing a much larger piece of legislation to combat all forms of elder abuse, all the way
That's
down
right.
to the
That's right.
sexual abuse of older people.
Yes. That's part of domestic violence piece that I was speaking about because we have females as well as males that's being sexually abused again by people taking advantage of them. I had cases where they would go to the home and go there for money and then sexually abuse the person. And the older we get, the more pride we have. When we're being abused by our own children and our loved one, who wants to go to court and tell the court and everybody in court, my son is abusing me, my daughter is abusing me, I'm being raped by a relative? You know how humiliating that is? So they would rather suffer those abuse than to make reports so we can help them. That's another piece that's really difficult when you're dealing with seniors and domestic violence.
Yes. Yeah. So much work to do,
We
and
got a lot of work to do.
a lot, a lot,
We do.
a lot, and like we don't even know where it ends, huh? And there's just more and more abuse. But we need more people like yourself and your team. We need people out there in the community to be better friends, to
Yeah,
listen to their
and
friends,
we
right?
need more partners. We need a group that said we need to establish some maybe between the coalition and ARP with maybe friends for seniors that can check on them and just do little things they can't do for themselves. I mean, it's even a matter of sometimes just picking up medication for somebody. I've done that. Or just making sure they got the meal for the day, Troy. Or
Yes,
seeing if we can find somebody every now and then to clean up the apartment. I mean, all of those is for you to have a healthy life, regardless of where you are in your stage. You need those basic things: food, shelter, clothes, basic stuff. And a lot of our seniors are not even getting basic needs met.
exactly.
So somehow we got to find a way to bridge that gap. And
Yes.
maybe we can do it along with human services and see if we can find some other partners because we can't do it alone.
Yep.
We're going to need some partners to help
Yep.
us with this.
A great project for us to work on, and we've put it right out to the public. So now we got to get
Yeah.
working, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
That's
Yes.
exactly it. But Clema, we're right at the end of the show. Thanks so much for being on with us today. For our listening and viewing audience today, please remember to sign up for the event this evening. It's going across the bottom of the ticker. It'll be in the comments. And so, Clema, thanks. We look forward to having you in a future show.
Thank you. I just want to leave our number again. If you are a victim of domestic violence, our number is 340-773-9272. Thank
Great.
you, Troy and ARP, for your partnership. We
Great. Thank
appreciate you.
you. Have a great
All
day.
right. Bye-bye.